Welcome back everyone, I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lines CV, and today I'm bringing the player ratings video after a humbling 3-0 defeat against Bayern Munich. Now last night they really did put on a footballing masterclass. They showed us the big levels between us and them. They showed us that we have such hard work to do. They showed us the amount of work and the amount of strategy that it's going to take to get back to those levels that we used to be at. I think Hakim Ziyech is a very positive start, and hopefully we build on this by securing a top 4 spot come the end of the season, and of course continue the good work in the market by buying other quality players alongside Hakim Ziyech. We're now going to start with this player ratings video, and we start with Caballero in goal. He was one of our best players last night. He made countless decisive saves, his speed at leaving his box, the amount of times he had to make quick split-second decisions to leave his box to close down the Bayern players rushing towards goal was very impressive. It was very impressive just how many times he was able to pull off these saves. You know, he was very commanding when it came to set pieces as well, and I thought his distribution out from the back, the balls he was finding to the wing backs, were very accurate. At this point in time, he really deserves his place in the team over Kepa, and yeah, even though we did concede 3 goals today, I don't think it had anything to do with Caballero. For today's score, Caballero is going to score an 8 out of 10. We now move on to the back 3, starting with Andreas Kristensen. Now, I have to say, I thought that Kristensen was okay. Now, okay isn't amazing, okay isn't good, but at the same time, okay isn't bad, and okay isn't terrible. Kristensen was just okay. You know, when the game is on the floor, that's when you really see the player's great defensive skill set, because you notice his positional sense and his intelligence, how he closes down his players, how he shuts down passing angles, how he leaves his box to help support the fullback out wide. He can do all of that, but he sometimes struggles with the old-fashioned style of defending. You know, physical battles 1v1, Kristensen doesn't regularly win his duels every single time, and of course he doesn't have that explosive speed as well. He does lack from a physical point of view, and in the second half we could see some of these limitations coming in full effect. For his overall score, Kristensen is going to get a 6 out of 10. We now move on to Rudiger, and I've been saying this about the player since we first signed him. I've said it for a very long time, but he was never this world-class defender, he was never our best defender, and all this rhetoric that people used to say, I've always thought that really his level is a squad player. When I compare him to the great defensive players that we used to have, I don't think that Rudiger is in the same bracket or anywhere near it, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad player. I mean, of course not. He has some great attributes to his game, but in games like this at the highest level, is Rudiger one of those guys? Sadly, it's not the case, and constantly throughout the game, his poor and weak positional play, his over-reliance and over-aggressiveness came out time and time again. The Bayern players were just exposing him time and time again, and on top of that, he never really marshalled the back 3 at all. His passing out from the back wasn't too great either, and he's another defender that's constantly losing out on key duels. I've never understood why a lot of people have really loved the player or really see him as a great player for us. He's good, but he's not all that. Rudiger is going to get a 4 out of 10. We now move on to Azpilicueta, and Azpi really was exposed throughout the game. Now, one thing that I've been constantly mentioning about the back 3 was them being exposed for their lack of physicality. In the second half in particular, Bayern really exposed Azpi even more by targeting him. This meant that Reece James had to leave his position to help support Azpi, and by doing that it freed up the left-hand channel, and when you have an opponent in Alphonso Davies, one of the fastest players on the field, you do not want to give him that time and space. Azpi was constantly exposed by his pace time and time again. His slip was kinda unlucky, but still reflective of his game, and of course he had another involvement for the second goal scored by Bayern. Azpilicueta is going to score a 4 out of 10. We now move on to the wing back, starting with Marcos Alonso. Now, I thought that his game was alright, not too amazing. Now, at times he showed some threat going forward in the final thirds. I thought his red card was a bit funny. I don't know if he personally meant to do that, maybe he did, maybe I'm seeing things completely wrong. At times he did lose possession of the ball, and at times I thought his use of the ball in the final third wasn't great, but overall his game was standards. Marcus Alonso is going to get a 6 out of 10. We now move on to Reece James, and for most of the game I thought he was our most composed defender at the back. He was one of the few players to take the game to Bayern. He was happy to carry the ball when he had to. He was happy to beat a man when he had to. He looked to play positive passes down the channels. He played a few balls over the top to Mason, and I thought his general combinational play down the right hand side came off to good use at times. I think in the second half, when the team got exposed tactically due to fatigue playing a part, and due to Bayern Munich growing even more aggressive down the flanks, it meant that Reece James kept getting caught out in bad positions, and against Davies, who's going to have the upper hand in pace over the player, that was how we unfortunately conceded the third goal. However, Reece did compete. I thought his game was decent, and for those reasons he is going to get a 6.5 out of 10. Just to add on quickly, even though Davies was very good against us, we could still see some limitations in his game. He was getting exposed due to his lack of positional strength. I'm only mentioning this point because if anyone thinks that Reece James against Bayern maybe didn't live up to standards and he isn't good enough, you're being a bit too reactive. Let's remember these guys are still young and it's their first time playing at this level. We now move on to the midfield, starting with Georgie Neo, and wow, he was really outclassed throughout the entire game by Thiago. Thiago was stronger than him, passed the ball better, and really demonstrated the qualities that we need from our deep line playmaker in the team. In the game today, Georgie offered no platform for the team. His short passing game was very poor, regularly finding Bayern Munich players. His passes were flat-footed, he was picking the wrong options, and of course his lack of physicality really showed up. You know, it wasn't a great performance today. Georgina will be rightfully angry when he gets home. I'm sure the player's going to be. But honestly, he was chasing shadows the entire game. And it really makes you remember what Sarri said about the player really being suited to playing in a midfield 3. The reality is, to compete at the highest level, Georgie needs to be playing in a midfield 3. Now we move on to Georgina's partner in Kovacic, and he was our best outfield player today. One of the few players that can hold their heads high and say that they played well. He was the only threat that we had in the middle. He used his great press resistance to good effects, and he was one of the only players to show that he could play in this Bayern team. He started our dangerous moves, he worked very hard, he won his duels, he competed, and he looked to play football, regularly coming out on top. For these reasons, Kovacic is going to score a 7.5 out of 10. Now we move on to the attacking players, starting with Barkley. And the reality is, in a game like this, you know, Barkley was always going to be showing up. I was really surprised that Lampard didn't start Willian, especially in a game like this. You know, we've seen what Ross does against good opponents. It's like he can't handle the pressure. You know, he sloppily just loses the ball time and time again, especially those key dispossessions in our half, which of course typically happens against every big team that Barkley plays against. He looks a yard too slow every single time, and just for comparison's sake, Mason Mound had to play down the left and right hand side in the game in the first half. Compare how he played down those channels compared to Barkley. A huge difference, and I'm sorry when you start with a Barkley in a game like this up front, but you're starting with a man less. For today, Barkley is going to score a 4 out of 10. We now move on to Mason Mount, and I have to say that Mason Mount really showed me a lot of character today. He clearly wasn't fazed by his opponents, he looked to take the game on, and I love that he plays with this never say die attitude against any team and any opponent. In tonight's game, especially in the first half, he was our main attacking outlet, and I loved his intelligent positioning just in the half spaces. He kept taking Alphonso Davies out the game time and time again, and if it wasn't for Davies's just athleticism, because my god, this guy is like an athlete runner, he is super fast, and if we had better caliber of player supporting the attacks, who knows what could have happened. But as for these positives that he brought to the team, and of course at times, you know, he played with his head down a bit too much. This has been the one thing that's been surprising me a bit with Mason this season. Maybe this is part and parcel of the game for a young player, you know, making it at this level. I've seen Mason play a lot, and I've always thought his decision making in the final third has always been a big positive of the player. Maybe it comes down to playing at this level for the first time, it wouldn't surprise me, but one thing for sure is he has the mental characteristics to play for us. Mason is going to score a 6.5 out of 10. And to end things with the first team, we move on to Olivier Giroud, and I have to say I was very disappointed. I was hoping that he was going to provide a platform for the team. He's going to hold the ball up, link up the play, help find the runners in behind him. He wasn't able to do this at all, and as I've kept saying, Giroud is just too much of a niche player. Unless we're camping in our opponent's half, because that's how you get the best out of Giroud, then he has his limits. When he's by the halfway line and he has to hold the ball up or bring others in, he really struggles a lot, especially against the big teams and the big defenders. It's not helping him that I'm sure he's not fully 100% matched with just now, but in games like this, when you have 2 out of your 3 attacking players that just can't help with the attacks, then you're asking for trouble. For that reason, Giroud is going to score a 4.5 out of 10. We now move on to the substitutes, starting with Pedro. Now, Pedro really is such an anomaly. I don't understand him. In this game tonight, Pedro was showing all the things that he hasn't been showing in the past 3 games. He was attacking the spaces inside the box, looking to drive at the opposition, showing confidence on the ball, looking to make things happen as well. And of course, he did have limited time on the field today, but what I saw tonight has been 10 times better than anything I've seen in his past 3 games. And when you're a manager, it gets quite difficult when you can't fully 100% consistently rely on your players. Hopefully we can see more of this Pedro going into our next few games. But today he is going to score a 6 out of 10. Willian will also get a 6 out of 10 as well. I thought when he came on he showed glimpses of his skill set, and I felt like we could have used that skill set a lot in the first half. A few times he was running at the Bayern defense, driving from deep. Of course, some of the decision making in the final thirds, well, it's natural. I don't really see too much cohesion or team play in the final third, compared to a Bayern Munich, because that's the levels. Compare how Bayern Munich break teams down compared to us. They have a clear understanding of each other's game, and to get to that point, it takes time. For that reason, Willian is going to score a 6 out of 10. And to end with all the outfield players, move on to Hammy Abraham. I'm going to say it straight, Abraham was very, very poor today. But I'm also going to say, please, we cannot forget that he isn't fully 100% fit. He's still carrying that ankle knock. We've seen in the past few games that when he takes a knock, he's lying down on the floor holding his ankle a bit. He's being forced to play because Lampard needs to rely upon him due to the amount of big games we're playing this season. This is not a reflection on Tammy's ability. I'm seeing a lot of harsh criticism. I'm getting really bored of it. It's just like every week there's a new player the fan base hates. It's disgusting. I'm not standing for it. We've made this mistake how many times this season? Remember the Olivier Giroud vs Mitchell debate? Everyone's saying, why is Mitchell starting? Lampard's stupid, it should have been Giroud. Literally the day after, Lampard confirms that Giroud was not fully fit. Let's not make this same stupid mistake. But, of course, I gotta keep things real. His performance for tonight wasn't great. And for that reason, Tammy is gonna get a 3 out of 10. Now, to end with things, we do move on to Frank Lampard. Now, I know that some people might critique him for using a 3-4-3, based on the amount of players that he could work with. This formation was the best we could use against Bayern. I mean, come on. Without Kante, Ruben, Pulisic, Hudson-Odoi, a fit Hammy Abraham, you can go on. What were we really gonna do against Bayern Munich? So for that, his lack of options really did hurt Lampard. But at the same time, could you say that he's paying the price for using Kristensen and Rudiger in so many games? Because with some of the goals that they've conceded, these key individual duels that your Zumas and Tomoris just weren't conceding, well, it felt like it was going to be inevitable that we concede another goal in this manner. For me as well, I think Lampard made a mistake not starting Willian early in this game, unless maybe Willian isn't fully fit and I'm unaware at this point in time. But against Bayern Munich, you can't have players wasting their time on the pitch. Willian barely had any time to influence the game. Barkley was on for way too much. I just think that he would have had a better impact coming on as a sub instead of Willian. This was a humbling experience, and I'm sure Lampard's going to think a lot about this game. But you guys, on that note, I'm going to wrap things up and keep things moving. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Line CV. See you guys in a bit.